You're watching the Brother Henry and You Show.
Engaging. Informative. Inspirational.
Enjoy today's program.
Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. This is your host, Henry Harris. Thank you for tuning in today. We've been talking about a series called The Art of Forgiveness. And I tell you, I've been tremendously blessed being able to come and share my perspective on forgiveness. It may be a perspective that you maybe have never heard, but I really believe that it has been a tremendous blessing to many of you today. So I want to take the time out to say thank you for all of you who have followed me on this journey in the last several weeks. It's just about over, and I hate to see it come to an end, but everything must come to an end. But I want to come, and we are on part 5 of The Art of Forgiveness, and today I want to talk about, am I too trusting? You know, being too trusting can be a good thing. It can also be a bad thing. It just depends on where you're at. But I believe sometimes being too trusting can put us in situations that we haven't asked for. So, but I want to say this right quick. Have you ever asked yourself, am I too trusting? Have you ever asked yourself, why didn't I see that coming? How could I have been so gullible? How could I have been so stupid? Why didn't I see that? And I believe if we were all honest with ourselves, many of us could say that we found ourselves in some places and in some situations where we had to ask ourselves, I didn't see that coming. And I didn't know that was coming my way. Am I too trusting? Much of this, and even these questions here, comes when we realize that sometimes we may be too trusting. I think we've all been there. We've trusted a spouse, we've trusted a friend, we've trusted a co-worker, and oftentimes we are blindsided by lies and deception. Let's just face it, we simply just don't see it. Sometimes we don't see it coming. It's just like, let's just say the weather is perfect and all of a sudden, bam, a tornado hits and it destroys a whole city. I've heard people say, well, I didn't see that coming. Well, you know what? You put your trust in the good weather because you looked at the weather and said, wow, the weather is perfect, and you trust the weather and everything's going to be okay. And all of a sudden, life did a 360 for you. The bad weather came. Well, that's the way some people are, whether that's spouse, co-worker, friend, or associates, whoever that may be. You cannot trust people too much. You just can't do that, because the trouble with being too trusting is that we assume that everybody is the same way that we are. You start to believe that everyone has good intentions, everyone is kind, and that everyone can be trusted. If you are looking for a downfall, if you're looking to be hurt in some way, you will find yourself hurt if you start to project everybody to be just like you. Now, you may be kind-hearted. That doesn't mean everybody else is kind-hearted. You may be loving. That doesn't mean everybody else is loving. You may be trusting. Doesn't mean everybody else is trusting. How many understand what I'm saying today? Everybody is not like you. So once your trust has become violated, you start to convince yourself that, what did I do wrong, when the true problem is with those who violated your trust. You think that you're the problem. You're starting to think, well, what did I do to deserve this? How many have heard people say that? What did I do to have my trust violated? I didn't do nothing wrong. But the problem is not you. The problem is with those who violated your trust. So it is important that we learn to identify the people who hurt us. Identify the people who have betrayed us. If you really think about it, so many of us are way too trusting. And I can speak from experience, at times, or at one time in my life, I was way too trusting. A lot of the hurts and things I've experienced in my life, I didn't have to experience. A lot of the hurts and things I've encountered in my life came as a result of being too trusting. I had to learn the hard way and had to examine myself because I've discovered that much of my own hurt came from me being way too open with people. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand me today. There's nothing wrong with laying it out on the table, so to speak, but we need to be cautious who's at the table. I'm not saying don't be open. I'm not saying don't be vulnerable. I'm not saying don't lay it all out on the table. You can lay it out on the table, but you need to identify who's sitting at that table with you. You can't be open with everyone. You can't trust everyone. Because a lot of people out there, they're not trusting. How many of you have had people you said, I'm going to share something with you, but don't share with anybody else? Then the next day, and sometime within the next several minutes after you guys departed, it's all over town. Think about it. You go to them in confidence, and that's the most hurtful thing, especially if it's a family member or somebody close to you. You really trusted them with some valuable information, and come to find out they spread it everywhere. We've all been down that path before. Sometimes being too trusting leaves room for you to be hurt, and those who hurt us would not have known if you hadn't made yourself so vulnerable. And I believe that there is a huge difference between vulnerability and transparency. And we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. Right now, I think in order to identify if you are too trusting, maybe you should start asking yourself these questions. Number one, do I give away too much information? Let me tell you something. You don't have to tell everybody everything. Did you know that? You don't have to tell everybody everything. And I see a lot of people, they do that all the time. You talk too much. And I'm speaking from experience. I've been there. And you're digging a deeper hole for yourself because you talk too much. You give away too much information. I think even about relationships. People say, oh, my relationship is complicated. My relationship is... And then when it's get out in the opening, you get offended. You get mad. But you were the one that was vulnerable and gave that information to a person that you trusted. Is it their fault or is it your fault? Sometimes it's our fault. Don't give away too much information. If you are going to give information, give it to somebody that you truly trust, that you truly can confide in. Give it to somebody that you know that's not going to spread it around. Number two, am I too quick to give people access to my life? Everybody cannot be in your inner circle. Everybody cannot have access in your life. I have people in my life, a lot of people in my life. That doesn't mean that we're close. That doesn't mean that we're tight like that. And I love everybody. I would hope that my life would have showed some sense of authenticity. That people see how vulnerable I am and real I am. It's not something I do, it's who I am. But at the same time, I cannot give everybody access to my life. I cannot allow everybody into my personal space for my own protection. Number three, have I set healthy boundaries? You have to set healthy boundaries. Number four, do I believe everything that's being presented to me? You can't believe everything everybody tells you, even if it's a story. I had a friend that told me not too long ago that you have one person that's saying their side of the story, and you have another person that's saying their side of the story, and somewhere in between is the truth. I never thought of it that way, but that is true. In other words, you have to bring both sides together to draw a conclusion or a judgment to the situation. You can't believe everything that anybody tells you or presents to you. Number 5, do you have a history of saying yes all the time? I rarely had any enemies until I started saying no. And for some of us, it's a process. We have to learn how to say no. You can't be available all the time. You can't say yes, yes all the time. You have to bring yourself to a place of saying no, or you will eventually burn out. These are just a few among many that may help you to identify if you're too trusting or not. People who are too trusting often are the most used. We have to be honest with ourselves. And if not, you will develop a cycle of being betrayed, abused, and used. And I do believe that there's a difference between being vulnerable and transparent. But before I continue, maybe we should define what the two actually means. Vulnerability means the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed either physically or emotionally. Transparency means the condition of being transparent, clearness, clarity, quality that makes something obvious or easy to understand. Now I want you to understand this. I believe it's okay to be vulnerable in the sense of being real and authentic and open with people, but I wouldn't suggest to be open with everyone as it relates to transparency. Being vulnerable means you see a portion of me. Being transparent means you see all of me. You can't be transparent with everybody, but you can be vulnerable with some people. If you do choose to be transparent, be very selective on who you will be transparent with. Now, before I go to a close, I want to talk about this. Is trust earned? I ever heard a lot of people say, well, you got to earn my trust. Is trust earned? Is it really earned? I personally don't believe trust can be earned. Let me tell you why. I believe that trust is a gift. This is how I would break it down. Trust is connected to conditional acceptance, meaning I must prove or work my way back into being trusted again. How many understand what I'm saying? Trust is a gift. Trust is not earned. You have the freedom to either extend the gift of trust back or not. There's a famous quote that states, trust isn't something you earn, it's something that you give. I think about this analogy often. Think about, let's say a spouse committed adultery on another spouse, and the other spouse said, well, I'll trust you again if you do A, B, and C. Now let's say they do that. Well, here's the deceptive thing and misleading thing about that. It's still going to be in the back of their minds. What if he does this to me again? Or what if she cheats on me again? I'm using this for an example. Is that really trust when it's still in the back of your mind? When actually you have the ability to either extend it back to them. Okay, I'll give you the gift of trust back. Or else just say, I won't trust you again. So I believe that trust is a gift. It's not earned. Appreciate you guys for watching. Join me next week as we conclude our series, The Art of Forgiveness. We will be talking about, I have scars, what do I do?
Hi, my name's Heather. Thank you for watching the Brother Henry and You Show today. If you've enjoyed the show today, visit us at facebook.com/The Brother Henry and You Show. Thank you for watching and have a blessed day.